Hello my beautiful buds. Welcome back to my channel, Sprouts with Joy. My name is Joy, and if you like to talk about plants, you're in the right place. It's that time again where it's a change of seasons, and so I'm here to tell you about my seasonal favorites. And right now, it's frickin' winter, baby. So it's time to talk about my winter favorites. Yay! I do always tend to say like favorites videos are some of my favorite videos to make on my channel, just because it gives me a chance to reflect on some of the plants that have been catching my eye, and I get to share them with you guys, and they're usually plants that are doing fun things. Yeah. I will say I cannot believe that it's winter time, and before you come at me saying it's not winter until the winter solstice, I'm sorry, but in my mind, the second it's December, it's winter. Besides, it's already snowed a few times and all the leaves are gone, so it's winter. Anyways, enough of that. I guess we'll just dive right into the plants and plant products that have been speaking to me. First up is my Epipremnum pinnatum albo variegata, which is a bit of a mouthful, but basically it's the Epipremnum pinnatum, but it has white variegation on it. And I will say, admittedly, the variegation on this particular specimen isn't like superb or anything like that, but I think that it has potential, and with some of these new leaves that are coming out, I am enthusiastic. So I did relatively recently put it on this like wooden pole thing, and it seems to be enjoying it so far, because for a while when I first got this plant, it wasn't really doing anything. It took some time to acclimate to my environment for those first few months, but recently it's been growing, which is why it's on my favorites list, because I'm like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? What are you doing? So here, let me show you. Let's see, he put out this leaf, which is actually quite pretty, but it's a little bit small. It's a little bit dumpy in some ways. And then there's this leaf, which it's kind of hard to tell in the viewfinder looking at that right now, but you know, it's kind of like a half moon marbled leaf, where this portion of the leaf is quite nice and marbly. And then it's putting out this leaf, which looks like it's going to be quite large, which I am very excited for. And it kind of looks like it's going to have quite a bit of variegation on it, so I'm very hopeful for that. And then down here, there are a couple other shoots that aren't quite on the pole yet, but they're putting out leaves as well. So overall, yeah, I'm honestly just happy that he's growing, and I'm really excited to see if this plant will fenestrate for me in the future, because Epipremnum fenestrations are so cool. I think this will be a really fun plant as he matures for me. The next plant I want to talk about is my Syngonium erythrophyllum, which is a plant that was on my wish list for a really long time, primarily because it has like the, reddish backs to the leaves. And this is just in general, this is just such a cool plant. Probably my favorite Syngonium out there, I think, maybe. But I don't like committing to favorites like that, other than like seasonal favorites like this video, because that's a lot of pressure. But it's on my favorites because I did, like a couple months ago, I chopped it up in a video actually, and those propagations are doing fairly well, so pretty soon I'm going to repot this and like pot in those propagations and make a really nice full pot. But since I cut it, oh my goodness, like a bunch of growth points must have just exploded, because look at how full she's starting to look. Like this leaf, this leaf, this leaf, this leaf, and I think that might be it. There's 4 leaves that just popped up all at the same time, and they're all so beautiful. Look at that glossy sheen. And let me see if I can get the right angle on it, because these leaves glitter under the right lighting. It's usually if I put them up against direct sunlight that I'll see the glittering, so I don't know if you can really see it in this lighting necessarily. But I just love the glittery leaves. I love the red backs to the leaves. I'm honestly just excited that it exploded with so much growth for me after cutting it. And then I'm gonna have all those propagations to prop back into the pot, and I'm honestly really excited to like pick out a pot for it, because I don't think I'm gonna go with typical terracotta. I want to find a more special pot to put it in, because this is just the original nursery pot that he came in. So yeah, I'm beyond thrilled with this plant's growth, and he's been so low maintenance and so chill, and we love that in a plant. So yes, Syngonium erythrophyllum is definitely up there in my favorites. All right, next on my favorites list, which is anyone gonna be surprised? It's my freaking monstera constellation. Oh my gosh, I cannot get over this plant. Like it's so pretty, and this is the newest leaf, which I did feature like on an update video relatively recently, but it's like just hardening off now, and it's so pretty. Just look at all those fenestrations, and even it's so cool. Like look at how it's still kind of connected by like a little string. Like how did it? It's so cool, dude. It's so cool, and the variegation is just perfect. It's perfection. And I am so excited for the next leaf that this guy produces, because it was an absolute pleasure to watch this leaf unfurl. There was nothing like it, man. I feel like when I was admiring variegated monsteras at a distance, like I really liked them, but I think I didn't let myself fall in love with them too much. But now that I actually have one in my possession, I'm able to like actually fully gush over it and appreciate it for how stunning it is. Oh my gosh. And guys, I'm thinking about like how massive these monsteras can get, and I'm just praying that he holds on and like doesn't rot on me, doesn't have problems. I mean, I know these guys are kind of notorious for being super slow growers and for having issues in some regards, but I'm hoping that he has inherited the powerful Monstera deliciosa genetics that I know that he's capable of, because I own 3 other monsteras. Like one of them is debatably a Brasigiana, but the two other ones I think are deliciosas. I mean, that's a whole other, I don't know, they might be different small form monsteras. But anyways, this one I am hopeful that he remains as beautifully hardy as those other monsteras have been in my collection, because like I don't want anything to happen to this plant. Please. But so far he seems happy. One of these days I'm gonna have to like get him on some sort of support maybe to keep him growing nicely, but I haven't really decided what I want to do in that regard, because none of my other Monstera deliciosas have support, even though they should probably get some because they just sprawl everywhere. So, but I will say I love this plant. I really do, and I'm so still just floored that I own it. Okay, next up is my Anthurium clarinervium, which for a while I felt so bad because I bought this plant and then I got pregnant and was just so sick immediately after, like basically just a few weeks after, I think, is when I got the positive pregnancy test. I don't have a greenhouse cabinet or really any sort of like closed growing situation that I could have put her in, that she would have fit in. I do have some like humidity boxes that are like prop boxes that I put some plants in to rehab them, but she's really too big to fit in there comfortably. So she was just out there suffering as I like wasn't refilling the humidifiers during the winter when the ambient humidity of my home was just not it. And I was underwatering her, and her poor little leaves just got so crispy. But since I've been able to pay more attention to her, and since she's put out these 2 new leaves, these leaves are happy as can be, which has made me as happy as can be, because really I have admired this plant from afar for a really long time, and I was so thrilled to have found it in person at a store for like a decent price back in February when I bought it. I feel like because I got pregnant and I was so sick and I wasn't really feeling my plants, I just never really had the time or energy to fully appreciate this plant in the way that I wanted to appreciate it. So here, let's appreciate it together right now. Anthurium leaves are so pretty. Oh my gosh, you guys, especially the clarinervium, at least in my opinion. There are some other Anthurium, like velvet leafed Anthuriums, that I really appreciate, and I would love to get into collecting more anthurium, especially once I maybe get a greenhouse cabinet or a better system or a grow tent, something to where the more finicky anthurium would be more okay with me, because as is, I feel like the more like the clarinervium can tolerate it, maybe the crystallinum as well, ambient humidity, but other anthurium, I can think of some that probably wouldn't be very happy with that. So I'm gonna wait and hold off on buying those anthurium until I get a better system. But anyways, I digress. That's a whole other topic that I'm just rabbit holing into right now. But yes, I'm just happy that I have this plant and that I now finally have the capacity to appreciate it. And it has been a pretty slow grower for me so far. I think in general, anthurium might be slower growers, or at least while they're still trying to get established and stuff and still acclimating. He did actually flower for me, like I got an inflow from him. I chopped it off, of course, because I left it for a little while, but I don't think I'm going to be able to pollinate anthurium anytime soon. But there he is. A happy little guy. Okay, and finally, I think this is going to be the last plant that I talk about, and it is my Marble Queen Pothos. My goodness, she is a monster, so I can't really feature all of her at once, but here she is. She's so glorious. I will say that I definitely think that I take my pothos for granted, like all of them probably, because at a certain point they do sort of become filler plants, and because there are so many growth points, like you don't necessarily notice them growing in the same way that you notice other plants growing. Like, I mean, if you look at this just bunch here, like there are new leaves literally everywhere, up and down, all over the plant. Like, I can't keep track of them, so I feel like I don't really appreciate them. So it grows and you just don't really notice that much, I feel like, especially once the plant gets this big. And honestly, she actually got really tangled, so I didn't really notice how much she had grown until one day I decided to untangle her, and she was so freaking long. But I think she's tangled herself again, so you know, she's honestly even longer than this. I have been appreciating her and admiring her a lot more recently, just because, I mean, Marble Queen leaves are so beautiful. Like, look at that. Oh my goodness. A lot of the leaves honestly give like Snow Queen vibes, which really Snow Queen is still a Marble Queen, but it just has that like much whiter leaf and paler variegation. If I'm being honest, I have struggled with this plant a little bit recently, or honestly over the last like 6 months, because she has been battling mealybugs, and I have been treating her over and over again, but they just keep coming back. And let me tell you, it's a freaking pain to treat mealybugs on a plant that's this large. Yeah, I've also used like systemic in the soil and all of that. It's just, it's a little bit of a pain, but in spite of that, I have just been appreciating her and admiring her more as I care for her, because listen, she has no business being this beautiful, and I think that I really need to appreciate her more, and so I have been trying to. I'm hoping to repot her soon, because I actually have never repotted her, like, ever since I've gotten her. And, you know, I think we are beyond due for some fresh soil in here. She's a little bit awkwardly hanging to one side because she's, of course, going towards the light. But one of these days, soon, probably this winter, I'm promising myself this winter, I'm going to find an adequate pot for her, and I'm going to repot her. Because I feel like it gets so tricky to repot plants once they get to a certain point, because it's just harder to find pots that are the right size that will accommodate them. So I don't know, but enough complaining. This is a very pretty plant, and probably my favorite pothos that I own, I think. Okay, and finally, I wanted to just quickly mention a couple of plant-related products that I've been really enjoying recently. First one of which is actually like these clear pots. So honestly, this might not be like the best example because you can't really make out the roots super well in this guy because he's still pretty small. But I just love being able to see what's going on in these pots. Like, it is so cool to me, and I'm able to see the roots come in. I'm able to better evaluate when it needs to be watered because I can like actually kind of see the moisture that's in the pot. So yes, I love clear vessels, clear pots, that sort of thing. And I would really like to get more in my collection because I only really have this size, which is pretty small. But I did recently find an Etsy seller that sells a large variety of clear pot sizes, and I'm very particular too because I don't necessarily want those classic orchid pots that have like the holes all throughout them, because in my experience, my plants have never really grown well in those kinds of pots. But this kind of pot doesn't have any holes there. They're just all on the bottom, which is really nice. And honestly, it like feels nice too. It's just like a high quality, nice plastic clear pot. And for a while I thought that I wouldn't like the aesthetic of it and that I would always like put them into another pot, kind of like a cash po situation. But honestly, the more plants that I've put in these clear pots, the more okay with it I've gotten. I think that it actually looks pretty cool and I'm not mad at it. So yeah, clear pots, I am team clear pots if you can manage it. Now, am I gonna run around repotting every single one of my plants into a clear pot? Not necessarily, but if I happen to have one available that's the right size for the right plant, heck yeah, I'll put it in a clear pot. Why not? I think it's awesome. I think it may especially be great for those plants that like are finicky with their watering and you want to keep close tabs on them and have a better way of noticing and gauging when they need water, because yeah, the clear pots, they're just great for that, you know? Plus I'm nosy and I like to see what the roots are doing. Okay, and then the final thing I want to talk about, of course, is the sulfur plant fungicide, which is just all the rage. I just use the bonide kind. This is a powder that you can add to like a bunch of water. Like the instructions tell you how much. I don't have it memorized. You can add it to water and then spray it on your plants, or you know, whatever you want to do. And also, in case you don't know, sulfur fungicide is a brilliant treatment for flat mites, which is a pest that has been ravaging Hoya all around the world, that we're all just now finding about because they are invisible to the naked eye. Yeah, there's your PSA. But yeah, just in case you don't know about that, that's the deal. So sulfur fungicide is the way to get rid of those nasty little flat mite buggers. And I definitely have been seeing success on a lot of my Hoya that, you know, they weren't growing or their growth was coming in stunted. And since treating them with this over the course of several weeks, I've noticed that my Hoya are finally growing again, which tells me that they're taking care of those dang flat mites that are super annoying. So yes, sulfur fungicide, if you're struggling with your Hoya, if you suspect that they have flat mites, I definitely recommend giving this treatment a try. I do not recommend boiling your Hoya or putting them like in super hot water or whatever, because that's another popular treatment, and I've seen that it has not worked well for people. Bless their hearts, they forged the way for us. They did it so we didn't have to, and now we know. Don't put your plants in hot water. That's at least my personal advice. All that aside, I actually have found that this tends to clog my spray bottles. I even have one of those like things designed to specifically spray plants, and it even was kind of struggling with this, and maybe I just didn't like shake it well enough or mix it well enough, but I actually have just resorted to like painting the treatment on with like a paintbrush on my Hoya, which is a little bit of a pain, but none of my Hoya are extremely large, so it's not that bad. And I like having more control and being able to like get into all those crevices anyways with a paintbrush. So if you're wondering how that works, basically I just empty out a little bit of the sulfur fungicide and then I kind of mix it so that it's more of a pasty consistency, or like kind of wet, and I paint the treatment onto the leaves effectively. That's how I use it. most people probably spray it, but it just clogged like 3 of my spray bottles until I gave up and I was like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm probably dumb and just not doing it correctly, but I'm just going to do it the way that I want to do it, which is with a paintbrush. So if you're struggling with applying this, just do that. Because why not? I think it's also valid. It's also working for me. Anyways, I think that is gonna be it for this video. So if you enjoyed my company, if you enjoyed watching, if you enjoy the content, please feel free to leave a comment, like, or subscribe. Those are all very helpful for my channel's growth. But also, I just love meeting you guys. I love talking with you guys, chatting with you down in the comments and all that stuff, because that's one of the great parts about this plant tea community, you know? I hope that you have a wonderful and blessed day. Bye-bye!